गुड इवनिंग एंड वेलकम टू गना शॉट। गना शॉट में आप सबका स्वागत है। प्रणाम, सत श्री अकाल एंड जय हिंद। आज हम बात करने वाले हैं रॉकेटिंग ऑफ द पीएलए रॉकेट फोर्स जनरल्स एंड टू टॉक अबाउट दिस आई हैव जनरल राज शुक्ला विद मी। गुड इवनिंग जनरल राज शुक्ला, हाउ आर यू एंड हाउ's everything?
Wonderful, sir. And it's great to be back on Gunner's Shot. I think it's going places, huh? Sir.
Yeah, yeah, but it's not going as it's not going at the same pace at which the rocket force generals are being fired out. उनका स्पीड थोड़ा ज्यादा है,
Sir.
right? So we'll start today. Today is a topic which we have chosen. I've chosen because there's a lot of firing and hiring going on in China, especially instigated by Xi Jinping. उसने हाल ही में रॉकेट फोर्स में शेकअप कर दिया, एक टॉप जनरल का सुसाइड भी हो गया। ये जो नंबर 2 है वो जूनियर है या सीनियर है नंबर 1 से, और वो ही गॉट मोर ऑफ अ पॉलिटिकल रोल। वो तो रॉकेट फोर्स का हुआ। अगले पिछले 2 साल से देखोगे तो ये वेस्टर्न थिएटर कमांडर को 4 बार बदली कर दिया। एक ऑफ कोर्स वाज अ नॉर्मल प्रमोशन इनटू द सेंट्रल मिलिट्री कमीशन, बाकी 3 बदली हो गए। उसके अलावा इसके साथ साथ 2-3 लोग जो जिंगजियांग मिलिट्री कमांड के हैं, मिलिट्री डिस्ट्रिक्ट से हैं, उनको भी बुला लिया। उनका भी पेशी हो गया शी जिनपिंग के सामने, और वो है लॉयल्टी टू द पार्टी वगैरह वगैरह। इसके इस इफ यू लुक आउट ऑफ दिस प्रिज्म, इन द पास्ट 3 months Xi Jinping has carried a severe purge, and this purge has touched many sectors across the board. It includes a very heavy purge on the financial sector. Plus, there's one chief of the some province, Communist Party chief of one of the provinces, who's been convicted and sentenced to death also. एक मीडिया बॉस को आउट कर दिया। आज ही मैं सुन रहा था, किसी ने बताया मेरे को कि शंघाई में जितने मेडिकल अथॉरिटीज हैं उनको भी सफा कर रहा है। So it leaves us with a question, the question which I'm sure you'll address. क्या ये जो रॉकेट फोर्स और मिलिट्री के ऊपर जो पाबंदी लगा रहा है, ये इज इट पार्ट ऑफ द रेस्ट और इज इट समथिंग सिग्निफिकेंट, और इज इट पार्ट ऑफ जी जिनपिंग की भाई जब से ये आया है पर्ज कर ही जा रहा है करप्शन के चक्कर में? क्या है ये, एंड हाउ डज इट अफेक्ट पीएलए, हाउ डज इट अफेक्ट चाइना, and how does it affect all of us? Right, all yours, and after your initial thoughts, then maybe we can discuss more. Please carry on.
So my opening premise, sir, is this: कि I have not. I mean, in my view, I have not seen a Chinese leader in the recent past जिसने PLA की तरफ इतनी मोहब्बत दिखाई है. He has really nursed it. No, there's a serious point also. This.
Yeah, I agree. No, I agree with you completely.
In my
he
view,
is absolutely PLA focused.
Very PLA focused. मैं आपको बताऊं सर, मैं बड़े सालों से इसको फॉलो कर रहा हूँ. I have not seen in recent times a Chinese leader who has spent 3 days in an infantry school, 2 days in their artillery school, 2 days in their aviation academy. He has been personally signing their training documents. My analysis tells me it's कि ये Chinese leaders ने पहले नहीं किया है. ऐसा नहीं है कि it's a tradition. Eastern Theatre Command वो इतनी बार जा चुके हैं because he's seriously worried about the capability of the PLA to do Taiwan. He is on record to say कि be 1000% ready before we go into Taiwan. तो in that sense, ये जो नई PLA है, that's his baby. He wants to use it to deliver. So he's equally fearful of things when they don't go wrong. Because unlike Hu Jintao, Jiang Zemin, he has not kept the PLA at arm's length. It's his baby. So it has to perform. तो when you look at this purge, जब आपने बताया वो medical, I have not been following that, so I'll confine myself to the
No,
strategic.
no, no, take it. No, I've given you overview,
Yeah,
and
बिल्कुल.
actually, what you're saying is absolutely correct.
If I
In
may
fact,
just make one
initially,
point in the larger points, you see how this whole Xi Jinping thought. Xi Jinping thought has been reproduced in many PLA doctrines. And so he's assuming this larger than life figure equal to even greater than Mao.
Mao.
So if
Yes,
he
I
is
agree with you.
greater than Mao, more powerful than Mao, then everybody in China has to listen to him. Every cat and every mouse has to listen to him.
हर
So
चूहे
अभी
का हर हर चूहे को और कोई रास्ता नहीं है। ये एक एक बिल्ली है जो मियाओ बोलेगा इस देश में।
अभी सर इस बार क्या हुआ जो उसने 20 आई थिंक 2012 में उसने जो पर्ज किया था पहले पीएलए में पीपल लाइक जू काई हु एंड गू बाउक्स लॉन्ग वो जो पर्ज था सर वो इस उसका पर्ज का संदर्भ अलग था उस टाइम दी आर्मी वाज वेरी स्ट्रांग उनके थिएटर कमांड्स में अपने अड्डेस थे एम्पायर्स थे वो सारे प्रिंसलिंग्स थे ही वांटेड टू डिसलॉज देम तो वो उसने क्या किया उस टाइम ये जो पूरा जो करप्शन का था कैंपेन कि नॉट ओनली द फ्लाइज बट आल्सो द टाइगर्स that corruption campaign that he launched I'm told some 96 generals were purged and out of which 5 to 6 left to their suicide तो एक बड़ा भयंकर पर्ज था बट वो पर्ज एक पर्पस के साथ था जैसे ही आर्मी कमजोर हुई उसने जी साहब ने वो मौका देख के he built made comprehensive reform through the PLA हम सब जानते हैं थिएटर कमांड्स और मतलब इट वाज अनथिंकेबल सर नेवी एयरफोर्स का तो कोई सीएमसी में नहीं था अभी सीएमसी में है अभी आप देखिए रॉकेट फोर्स कमांडर इज एन एडमिरल
नेवल चैप या
ऑल अदी कमिसार एयरफोर्स से हैं अनथिंकेबल तो करप्शन कैंपेन तो था बस उस करप्शन के साथ एक लार्जर ऑर्गेनाइजेशनल रिफॉर्म था और उसने वो रिफॉर्म कर दिया जो आज तक हम भारत में नहीं कर पाए ये थिएटर कमांड्स वगैरह सो
डाउट नहीं है
इट इज वेरी सिग्निफिकेंट अब इस बार व्हाट इज डिफरेंट सर कि जो रॉकेट फोर्स है रॉकेट फोर्स के जो जनरल्स हैं ये इसके खुद के अपने हैं he has appointed them so now Z's appointees have caused pain to him Z's appointees have been disloyal so he's even more worried कि भाई अगर मेरे बंदे मेरे को ये कर दें ये जो रॉकेट फोर्स है सर इट इज द न्यूक्लियर deterrent. Now, if the generals of the nuclear deterrent are not loyal, they don't listen to him. Is the nuclear deterrent safe? ये सवाल उठ रहे हैं.
Actually, you brought up a very important point. I mean, I must say this. Because, like you said, he's crafted this from a second artillery to the PLA rocket force.
Very good.
And China is on an expansion of nuclear assets. और ही हैंड पिक दीज पीपल आई थिंक आपने बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट बात बताया जो मैं सबको दैट्स व्हाई आई एम रीएम्फसाइजिंग इट और यही थोड़ा लड़खड़ा रहे हैं तो देयर आर क्वेश्चंस या प्लीज
अभी इसका आप थोड़ा सा बैकग्राउंड देखिए सर 1960 में माओ जो है सेकंड आर्टिलरी की स्थापना करते हैं बट सेकंड आर्टिलरी क्यों नॉट टू उस टाइम भी एम्बिशंस थे रॉकेट फोर्स के लॉन्ग रेंज मिसाइल्स अमेरिकन हार्टलैंड को थ्रेटन करने के लिए but काबिलियत नहीं थी so they kept it secret I'm told second artillery they made it seem as if it was only one more kind of artillery India में भी हम यही सोचते थे जब उसका प्रोफेशनल असेसमेंट करते थे we never thought it was this long range ecosystem of long range precision from Taiwan to the US heartland और उन्होंने उसको सीक्रेट रखा 85 तक 31 दिसंबर 2015 को जब इन्होंने ये रॉकेट फोर्स और स्ट्रेटेजिक सपोर्ट फोर्स की स्थापना की और सेपरेट सर्विस समटाइम्स वी डोंट डाइजेस्ट इट इज लाइक क्रिएटिंग अनदर आर्मी नेवी एंड एयर फोर्स तो ये बहुत ही बड़ा कदम था और उसके बाद सर आई मीन देयर आर टू डायमेंशंस टू इट today this both the rocket force and the strategic support force the kinetic arm and the non kinetic arm they have become this जिसे इंग्लिश में कहते हैं that it is this cross-cutting enterprise of long-range precision. अब ये बड़ी significant बात है. So it can strike Taiwan, it can strike first island chain, Guam, it can also strike the American heartland. So deterrence across layers. और ये बड़ा significant transformation हुआ है, उसके बारे में भी हम बात करेंगे. But and so therefore much of the West calls it signature projects. जो Admiral Paparo हैं, Samuel Paparo, commander of the US Pacific Fleet, and now he's been appointed as CNC IPACOM, he's CNC designate. He says, I'm quoting him, that the DF-17s and the DF-21s and the DF-26 bases along the 9,000-mile Chinese coastline have redefined the principles of naval warfare. IPACOM CNC. How have they defined कि वो जो American carrier advantage था neutralize हो गया? It cannot come in with the same impunity. Guam is vulnerable. America is dispersing its B-52 bombers to Darwin, Northern Australia, so on and so forth. तो West को बड़ी परेशानी थी इन दोनों what they called the signature projects, and I said it was the strategic nuclear deterrent. Or in this Taiwan contingency, again I'm quoting Xi talks of the Taiwan contingency when he says, not only high winds, but also dangerous storms, which is the ultimate military challenge. In that challenge, the rocket force was the centerpiece of their armory. And therefore, it is not innocent. ये जो rocket force और ये जो हो रहा है, in my view, there are elements of American intelligence, CIA and all this. There is external engineering, and that is why she is so worried. तो दो पहलू हैं इसके कि in this whole comprehensive transformation of PLA, which everyone acknowledges, rocket force and strategic force were these signature projects. And today, when they are in the spotlight for a set of dubious reasons, corruption, sex and sleaze, ये जो foreign minister का है, इससे ताल्लुक है, अभी हम उसको informational compromise. अगर rocket force commander, I am told his son was studying in the US, उस son ने कोई information leak की है, और ये जो Ginjang है, the foreign minister, उनकी जो mistress थी, that TV hostess Fu का कुछ linkage था commander rocket force से, and Fu put pressure on Ginjang not to tell Xi for a while. और वो जो डिले हुआ है रिपोर्टिंग में, उसकी वजह से जी साहब नाराज हुए और फॉरेन मिनिस्टर साहब की छुट्टी हुई है. सो सी दीज होल लिंकेजेस, और इसमें CIA शामिल है. नाउ सी हाउ अनसेटलिंग इट्स फॉर जी. न्यूक्लियर फोर्स, स्ट्रेटेजिक फोर्स, दे आर सपोज्ड टू बी द मोस्ट ट्रस्टेड इन टर्म्स ऑफ सीक्रेट्स. न्यूक्लियर वेपन उनके हाथ में है, और वो आप संभल नहीं रहे हैं, करप्शन ये वो. एंड देयरफॉर जो हम ऑडिट करते हैं रॉकेट फोर्स का, वी मस्ट ऑडिट इट फॉर टू रीजंस. कि भाई, आर दे जस्ट वैनिटी प्रोजेक्ट्स, मिसाइलरी, लॉन्ग रेंज, नाउ डिग्रेडेड बाय स्लीज, अब करप्शन वगैरह में लिप्त हो गए, या दे स्टिल रिमेन instruments with exquisite operational effects which will have a major role to play in Taiwan and possibly along the LAC. तो ये मेरा ओपनिंग प्रेमाइस है. सिग्निफिकेंस का, डेंजर्स क्या हैं, एंड इट इज ऑल्सो अ गुड अपॉर्चुनिटी टू डू अ रियलिस्टिक ऑडिट. ये रॉकेट फोर्स है क्या, इसकी काबिलियत क्या है, क्षमता क्या है, कितना ख्वाब है, कितना हकीकत है. सो दिस इज समथिंग.
I go with whatever you said. In fact, let me add on to this. Yes. ये जो रॉकेट फोर्स के बारे में आपने बताया, it is going to be at least it's being perceived as a game changer in the Western Pacific. Also the LAC, but I've also read they are looking at it as a game changer in the Indian Ocean region. बताता हूँ ये किस लिए है ये. We all think that China doesn't have bases in the Indian Ocean. Because it doesn't have bases, it cannot function. But I read a couple of articles. The fact is that China operates a lot of ports in these areas. The Chinese operated ports, right? Through China ports and all that, Costco and China ports. Now, most of these ports are dual-use ports, except probably ammunition capability. They have every other capability for thing. Plus, the fact that they have Djibouti already as a force, as a base, and Gwadar will come up. But till the time Gwadar comes up, they already have Karachi. Nothing stops them from using Karachi. The long-range vectors have this capability. आपने जैसे बताया that not only hit mainland, USA, also hit bases, American bases in this area in the Indian Ocean, and they are coming up with a new format of power projection in the Indian Ocean with the help of these rocket forces. It's just not the LAC; it's beyond. So that is why I said, look, when what you brought out is very important. आपने जितने भी बताया point मैं 100% उसके साथ हूँ. I've just added on कि इसीलिए और ये connection between King Jain and these rocket forces and all that, ये तो important चीज है. इसका परिणाम क्या होगा? That's the $1 million question. It's all yours.
सर जो आपने ये कही ना, मैं आपको एक चीज कोट करना चाहता हूँ. The Chinese in their thinking, they think like the Al Qaeda and the ISIS. In the CCP PLA textbook, everything is kosher. तो जो आपने कहा मैं आपको कोट कर रहा हूँ, ये कोई छुपी छुपाई बात नहीं है. 2018 में NDU उनका चाइनीज का नेशनल डिफेंस यूनिवर्सिटी, they publish a textbook explaining civil military fusion. Correct. उसमें एक सीरीज है PLA teachings on Xi Jinping thought. अब मैं उससे कह रहा हूँ, exact quote, our military is going around into the world and integrating into the global economy systematically. Military going. Our integrated military civil collective allows civilian activities abroad to provide a camouflage for military capability. तो कोई छुपी चीज नहीं है.
नहीं छुपा नहीं, ये बात हम समझते नहीं है.
नहीं, ये बिल्कुल समझते नहीं है. That's what I'm saying. And look at how explicit it is. They are telling their officers, we will also through the OBOR build civilian infrastructure for military use. और जो आप कह रहे हैं उस डॉक्यूमेंट में लिखा है containerized launchers in global bases. अब हम कहते हैं ना चाइना का एक ही बेस है जिबूती में, उनके सारे bases are dual use.
They have got 105.
Yes,
I mean,
so they can
put numbers. 105 ports which they operate.
So they can put their road, military, they have said road, military, airport, harbor projects should be built to military specifications.
Yes. No doubt nahi hai.
Containerized launches is one part of it. So that is it. But sir, just to return to this issue of what is the HR crisis. इस पे भी 5 मिनट थोड़ी सी बात
करते हैं. Please go ahead.
So we look at the HR crisis and then we will see. अच्छा, it is also linked to one more thing. ये जो कुछ suicide वगैरह हो रही है, ये इस वजह से भी हो रही हैं because there are two schools of thought. One says that we are not prepared for Taiwan. Rocket force में ये भावना थी. There was a crisis of confidence in terms of war preparedness, which annoyed Xi. And there is another school which says कि साहब जो भी करना है जल्दी करो because our economy is declining, we are being technologically caged by the Americans and the strategic opportunity is receding. मौका हाथ से निकल रहा है, जल्दी करो. So ये जो प्रेशर है ताइवान करने के लिए रॉकेट फोर्स में बड़ी हिचकिचाहट थी. So there was this crisis of confidence with regarding to war preparedness. अभी ये क्या नहीं समझते generals, in my view, they think it is fun time. They don't know that she is very serious. It has to be 2027, maybe 8, 9. ये होना है. And once you come close to the event, just like there is unease in the Americans, वहाँ पे भी बड़ी घबराहट है. चाइना में भी घबराहट है. This is another reason. But now, as far as the HR crisis is concerned, why it should be worrying? There are larger issues. एक या 1.5 महीने पहले Wang Shujun, who was the director of the CCP Central Security Bureau, personally responsible for Xi's security and for spying on his rivals, उनकी मौत हो गया था. उसके बाद Feng Yenghe, an AI expert who was building their AI-enabled battle command network, जिसको USA ने appreciate किया. उसकी कार एक्सीडेंट में एक मौत हो जाती है। जुलाई में जी chairs a CMC meeting where he says, and this is the English translation from the South China Morning Post, he tells his generals, you must have a early warning mechanism for integrity risks. मतलब इससे पहले कुछ हो जाए, you should be warned. And he tells them that I will probe all your corruption charges for the last 10 years. क्योंकि रॉकेट फोर्स में ये भी था कि जितने ये प्रोजेक्ट्स कर रहे थे एआई ये वो, उसमें बड़ा पैसा बहा है और जेबों में भी गया है। सो देयर इज वेरी
नहीं इसमें तो इनके तो जेब में तो जाता ही है, इसमें डाउट ही नहीं है।
अच्छा, अभी ये जो बात हुई सर, रॉकेट फोर्स, ली यू शाओ कमांडर, ही इज पिक्ड अप फ्रॉम अ मीटिंग 3 weeks or 4 weeks back. His son was studying in US, जिसका मैं बोल रहा था, वो इन्फो लीक हुई, and Fu, that TV hostess, pressurizes Kinjang not to report. तो ये it is a wider linkage, जो फॉरेन मिनिस्टर साहब जो हटे हैं उसमें भी कुछ लिंकेज है इस सबसे। Then the previous deputy commander Wu Go-ha commits suicide. Okay, 10 more generals, अब सब चीजें निकल रही हैं, generals और say 1 crore of the rocket force, the most prominent being Zhang Housheng, are being investigated. सबसे मजे की बात है, Wei Fenghe, the previous defense minister, who was the first man from the rocket force to become defense minister, because he was sending a message, it is not the traditional army, navy, air force, ye aadmi aayenge defense minister to give. So now you see what capital Xi was investing in the rocket force, and these chaps have let him down. So there is a whole thing, I'm told he's being investigated. So there is this widening net. Commander Strategic Support Force, publicly kuch nahi hua hai, there are hush-hush rumors that he's also being investigated. So if your two signature projects, acha, now let me link it with the Americans. The Americans have been on the back foot for long. ये जो चाइना का MSS है, UFWD है, जो उसकी पार्टी की एजेंसी है, यूनाइटेड फ्रंट्स वर्क डिपार्टमेंट और मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ स्टेट सिक्योरिटी, इन्होंने 10 साल से वेस्ट को उल्लू बनाया है अपने इन्फ्लुएंस नेटवर्क से, ये वो। They West agencies were on the back foot. I'm told Fu got links with British intelligence, so they were looking to get back, and they have got back. जो William Burns है CIA के director, last month he visits Beijing, hush visit. I suspect, and not only me, there are some speculation that it was a visit to tell the Chinese ki, listen, we have got much more on you, समझ जाइए, नहीं तो something more will happen.
No, he's gone to US. No, he's also gone to Russia.
Yes, he also went to Russia. It is a spy war, and Burns has been elevated to the cabinet. Reward.
Cabinet, yeah.
So now in the world of intelligence, nothing is, in black and white, but these are all worrying signs. जहां तक करप्शन की बात है, आप देखिए सर, एक CNS का डॉक्यूमेंट निकला है, Middlebury Institute of International Studies on the rocket force. I think the editor is Decker Eleveth. It is a fascinating document. Every base, what missile, what number, how many nuclear launchers, of what kind, kitne silos, kitne solid missiles, liquid missiles, all detailed. Now in such a and that is the report people are pointing to, which got leaked. So now एक और ये अफवाह उड़ रही है, और अफवाह में कोई सच्चाई भी हो सकती है, जो एडमिरल साहब भेजे गए हैं, he is actually Xi's man on that Taiwan project, the overall planning. He has been sent here and he's no rocket force experience. तो उसको भेजा गया है कि जितना ये इंफॉर्मेशनल कॉम्प्रोमाइज हुआ है, पहले इसको दुरुस्त करो, कोई रीडिप्लॉयमेंट करना है और कुछ करो, फिर ताइवान की बात होगी. So, and these come out in bits and pieces from social media, so on and so forth. But when you put this whole thing together, to me, it is the largest purge in the decade, perhaps even greater than the one which happened in 2012, because his personal security, it is hitting his technological experts, that AI chap, the signature projects, and what is being questioned is loyalty and reliability. अच्छा, मैंने ये सुना है that last time he could not touch, in that larger purge, he didn't touch the rocket force because they were technical. They also had princelings. So he had some trust. तो इसने उनको नहीं छुआ. But now he is determined to cleanse it. But if he cleanses it, ये जो information compromise हुआ है. अच्छा, now what is even more worrying? This Chinese nuclear force is no longer a modest arsenal tied to a NFU. We all know it is now launch on warning, equal capability in the theater sense, tactical nuclear weapons, stated policy in theater, and strategic systems to hit mainland USA. Up in such a ready arsenal, agar people are not loyal, I mean, Xi must be having sleepless nights. तो इन सब चीजों की वजह से that is why I think it is a HR crisis. One short point on this war readiness, low confidence levels. मैंने सुना है एक इनके बड़े रिस्पेक्टेड जनरल हैं, जनरल ली यू याजाओ. He was the political commissar of the NDU. He's respected in their military circles. He has been telling Xi that it is too early to go into Taiwan. And I'm told he's being charged with breeding anti-war sentiment. मतलब dissent को रोकने के लिए. The Chinese did an amphibious exercise. I couldn't pull out from the social media exact dates, but this was part exercise, part simulation in the Tangshan Harbor, जो Weibai province में बीजिंग के पास है, and it by and large is similar to Taiwan's Tamusi Harbor, जहाँ पे ये attack होना है. And the conclusions of this war game was that they may not win. They may not get air and sea control. So all these sentiments are worrying Xi. जब वो कह रहा है कुछ करो, ये आवाजें उभर रही हैं कि साहब नहीं कर सकते, और टाइम चाहिए, उसके ऊपर से करप्शन. And those two people I said who made this thing कि भाई the strategic opportunity is receding क्योंकि economy decline हो रही है, ये फलाना ढिमकाना. They are the first vice chairman Zhang Yuzia and the vice chairman of the CMC. तो अब ये जो सारी voices हैं, they are up against Xi's primary, what shall I say, instinct, which is to get Taiwan quickly, reunify Taiwan. I think that's the legacy that he wants to hand over to the Chinese people. And therefore it is really worrying for Xi. And ये जो एडमिरल साहब भेजे गए, एडमिरल वैंग हुई बिन, of course he's been told कि भाई corruption को आप जड़ से निकालिए, but more importantly disrupt the patronage networks in the PLA rocket force. और वो जो political commissar हैं, जो Air Force के हैं, he is a member of the party central committee, which means he's even senior to the admiral. So he has got the political backing, and he's been told to sort out the discipline and ideology. And so this is how I feel that this purge is of great importance. And I was reading somewhere, ये जो MSS और UFWD की कहानी थी, the Western intelligence agencies have got back in some manner, and they have held a dagger to Xi's heart कि जो आपके सबसे बड़े signature projects हैं, उनमें ही हम भेद करेंगे. And to some extent, I think they have succeeded. And I think so. This is, how I see the whole thing, the HR crisis, rocket force में जो ये हो रहा है, जो corruption के angle से ये है. अब if you wish to, take it in some direction, fine. Yeah, otherwise, I also thought, sir, we could spend a few minutes on what is the actual capability of this rocket force in the strategic supports. Why should it worry us? Should it worry us?
No, I
thought
think
we could do that.
Yeah, we'll do that also. We'll do that because we have to factor that in.
So as I was saying, awesome.
And the way आपने जो बोला है, I mean, I'm in 100% agreement with what you said. In fact, after all, the facts are common, which are coming out, and from what we could, the sources are also the same. Now, one thing is very clear, that today the Taiwan project will not go through the way it was planned to go through. There will be changes, and there's uncertainty in that whole story of Taiwan project. Plus the fact you combine it with the economic problems which China is increasingly facing, so that is in a question mark. Don't you think that will divert his attention to India? Because at some point of time, Taiwan is, Xi For all the investment he's done in the military, he needs a military payoff. And that military payoff, I have always been saying, will be against India. How that will be is a different story. But I think in the short term, till he regains his confidence on Taiwan, he might not enunciate it, but he will take a pot shot at India. And ये इसका कारण भी है. ये कारण ये है कि जब से Xi Jinping 2012 he's taken over as the president of China and the general secretary of the party, the PLA has seen action only against India, not against Taiwan. And when you speak to a lot of people, he's been at it. All kinds of face-offs have happened, whether it's Doklam, Galwan, ये तो high level के थे. You look at Yangtze, or you even before that, you look at the ones which happened earlier also. So how do you assess that? And then we'll get to what you're saying about the capability of the PLRF.
So ये जो आपने बात कही ना सर, we must really have a debate on it because this lies at the heart of our national security.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to put this across to you.
ये बहुत ही गहराई वाली बात है. अब आप देखिए सर, is territory a question with China? Is the LAC a question? I don't think so.
No.
62 में he makes deep inroads, but he goes back. So territory is not a question. The other thing is a question. जब वो मिडिल किंगडम की बात करता है, his interpretation of middle kingdom is these are the heavens, this is China, middle kingdom, बाकी सब मुझसे नीचे, tributaries.
Yeah, you're
that
right.
is a simple Chinese interpretation of the balance of power. We should never forget this. Now, if India is prepared to be this, then he will settle the border. If he is not, we have to contest it. And we have to be strong. We should. दूसरी जो आपने बात कही, इंडिया में सबसे बड़ी गलती ये है when we assume कि सर China is Taiwan is his primary orientation. It is not. It is this or that. And a good example is Galwan and all that. Whenever we have thought that Taiwan is his primary orientation, we have suffered.
Come here.
So we should take that out from our mind once and for all. दूसरा आप सर अगर आप देखें वेस्टर्न थिएटर कमांड में क्या उसकी मिलिट्री कैपेसिटीज बिल्ड हो रही हैं और ईस्टर्न थिएटर कमांड में there is little difference. While the readiness levels may be higher in Eastern Theatre Command, capacities are as good. We must never forget the wisdom of General Sundarji, who said that it is for the politicians and the diplomat to speculate ad lib on intent. Militaries must go by capacities. And in the Western Theatre Command, as I see it, his capacities are as much as Eastern Theatre Command. So this is a very important issue, but we must settle it insofar as clarity is concerned.
Yeah,
Never mistake कि भाई ताइवान में ये हो रहा है तो यहाँ नहीं.
नहीं, ये इसीलिए मैं ये बात उठाया हूँ because I am convinced, all my thinking says if he cannot go into Taiwan, for any goddamn reason, वो इंडिया में आएगा. And I am recently I did a study on the 62 ops, went into details of why they did what they did. And one of the things which comes out, like you said, one way of looking at it is the Middle Kingdom thinking. The other way of looking at it in the realpolitik way of thinking is that China has never considered India as a serious player. For them, the global balance of power is between Russia, USA, and China. You are an appendage, okay? And if you, as an appendage, have the gumption to take, show eyes to China, China has to sort you out. That's their general thinking. And they are not interested in your territory X, Y, Z. They are interested in inflicting reputational cost on you. The reputation of being a second-rate power as far as China is concerned. The reputation of not being able to compete with China, at least in the region, leave alone the globe. So the reputational costs are at stake here. And for inflicting a reputational cost, what he's done in Eastern Ladakh and holding on to Depsang is still a reputational cost on us. And if he multiplies it with another land grab here and there, I think he's achieved it. And I think we're not focusing on that aspect enough. Your view.
इसमें मैं दो चीजें कहना चाहता हूँ, because it's an important issue. See, sir, clarity is very important. Strategic clarity. So, just by way of an anecdote, I'm told Napoleon used to write love letters to his wife. In one of those letters, he writes, he says, "Beloved, had I more time to myself, my letters to you would have been shorter." He's saying, even in love, if there is clarity, so if
Yeah.
there has to be clarity in love, so why it is important in our case? This See, if you say Taiwan is his primary orientation, which means we have more time, so we should not worry. So the
No,
lag
we don't worry.
grows and the deterrence declines. But if you say no, this is also possible, so you act faster, you act in scale, you strengthen deterrence, China will back off.
Back off. Yeah. I
So
think you
this is
made the
how this
point.
whole thing plays. So
We need to
that
think.
clarity is extremely important. We must not let Taiwan distract us. We must know, and we are not itching for war. We are just making sure that we are so strong that peace prevails.
Yes,
So
I agree with you
this
completely.
is one thing we must do.
Yeah,
Now,
and like they say, brevity is the soul of wit,
all of it.
and
तो
you
जैसे
need to be. Yes.
रोमांस में क्लैरिटी चाहिए. That's
No,
a,
no, I am with you. No, I'm with you. I'm making a point here. I hope someone intelligent enough at the higher echelons sees this, who's in power today, sees this video of us to bring out this point. Whatever can happen in China with Xi Jinping and Taiwan, I'm not bothered. Whatever happens between USA and them, I'm okay, fine. We must know it and we must discuss it. But the end point of the discussion is how does it affect us? And
okay.
that's
Now
what,
let's get back to the rocket
yeah,
force.
we'll
So the,
now get back to the rocket force. Yeah.
this issue. Now see how, since this issue has been, and I've been studying this for a while, very privately, and I may even be wrong with my conclusions, but let me put them to you, sir, then you can question them. So this rocket force, इसका जन्म हुआ गल्फ वॉर 1 और 2 के चाइनीज के दिमाग में दरमियान. उन्होंने देखा ये जो रेकी स्ट्राइक कॉम्प्लेक्स है, सेंसर्स, बैटल नेटवर्क्स, so you get information converted into targeting data, and precise munitions means you don't have tonnage but smart munitions, accurate munitions. ये जो कहानी थी, this really impressed the Chinese thinkers and their thought. They have taken this to create what I call this cross-cutting enterprise of long-range precision, rocket force or strategic support force. And they are so ambitious and so bold. Now, this is something we must admit. They have taken these 8 domains: land, sea, air, subsea, seabed, space, cyber, EW. And they have said we will leverage all these in terms of sensors and technologies to create such military capacities that we have combat overmatch. So seabed sensors, satellites, I'm told there has been a 135% increase in Chinese orbital presence, all kinds of satellites. LEO में they are launching 13,000 to catch up to the
Yeah,
Elon
but
Musk's.
that's ahead. That's ahead, long ahead. That will
But
take
no,
time.
so they are doing it now. Seabed sensors.
No,
And they are linking sensors across these domains. And now see, they are graduate. So this is what the rocket force is doing. Marriage of micro electronics with explosives to make sure the ammunition is accurate. And the strategic support force is doing the other bit, non-kinetic stuff. So spectrum warfare, where you take information, use algorithms to generate targeting data faster, and use AI and all now to have in-flight updates. So your accuracies are increasing greatly. And a host of other examples. So you can strike Taiwan with precision munitions. You can strike the first island chain, Guam. This is what is, वो छोटा सा रेकी स्ट्राइक कॉम्प्लेक्स को लेके they have scaled it up, which is now worrying. A CNC PACOM, I think a former CNC PACOM said that if the rocket force opens up, 90% of our aircraft will be wiped on ground. I told you of the B-52 bombers. The Americans are scared. And the general American conclusion is that this is the rocket force, and the Americans have all this Patriot and Aegis, all their systems. But ultimately, the rocket force will saturate the AD systems. Now, this is the operational reality which exists there. So it has indeed been game changing. फिर हमने कहा साहब उनका आर्सेनल बड़ा छोटा है. It is a misnomer. Everybody is now saying they are in a nuclear breakout in terms of warhead launchers. They are matching the Americans. They have tactical nuclear weapons and nuclear systems to signal deterrence in theater. Guam, ye, wo, also along the LAC is also the American heartland. So if things aggravate, Los Angeles is threatened. New York is threatened. So ये जो पूरी कहानी है, just 1 minute, just 1 minute.
Go ahead.
Support force, they are actually working. It is all working on things like clouds, AI, supercomputing. All this is actually being factored into this whole enterprise. Now I am quoting an American analyst who says that it is the most modern and sophisticated system of ballistic, cruise, and hypersonic missiles. And the conclusion is that if these guys open up, the Americans will have great difficulties in the Indo-Pacific. So that is this whole thing about and therefore we need to take this very seriously. The rocket force that we are configuring must not just be just missiles, but this whole business of connectivity to space, EW, like their strategic support for cyber. The whole aim of cyber is to make sure that no data flows through the American system. Now, it may not happen 100%, but even if they degrade it 60-70%, their ambition and scale should worry us. So you see, sir, this is what is worrying about this whole rocket force and strategic support force. It is central to their Taiwan game plan. It could also be very potent in the Indian contingency. इसीलिए हमने इसको देखना है. और उसका आप देखिए मिसाइल्स देख ले. One last point. It has great magazine depth from SRBMs to MRBMs to IRBMs to ICBMs. As I said, solid, liquid, nuclear, conventional, सब कुछ एक उसमें है. And they have they are working on it since 60, 85, 90. It is a very long range system which has now acquired this thing. Look at their FOBS. So General Milley said it's the Sputnik moment because you can put a warhead into orbit and it bypasses all your traditional AD systems and can come and hit you. So it is a very potent system. We must take it far more seriously and have our own option in response. So this is what I wanted to say. So it's in great trouble because of some reasons, HR, ye wo, but it does not subtract from the potency of this whole thing. So ये जो दूसरा पहलू है, we need to take it really very seriously.
I like to amplify a few issues in this. The real potent issue here is not the kinetic part. The kinetic part is what it is. The real problematic issue which we need to focus is on the RSI, Recce Strike integration, or you call it Recce Surveillance integration. Okay, or you talk of the cross-cutting technologies in their terminology. That is what we need to focus on, and that is what we need to be actually worried about. Right. The only saving grace here is they can't do much cross-cutting across us because there's not much to cross-cut with us. They really can't interfere with your operations because we also don't have a control over it to a large extent. So that mismatch will help, right? Us to a certain extent. The moment you start modernizing and getting into this kind of a network kind of a system, then you have to start thinking of that. But having said that, I'd like to put it on record. Everyone talks of Chinese hypersonic missiles. What is the actual capability of this hypersonic missiles is a question mark. The last time they actually fired it, which went around the Earth, it went about 30 kilometers off. And it's not so easy to control a hyperglide vehicle the way we imagine it would be done. I'm not discounting their capabilities, but I'm not going to overstate their capabilities. I think we need to have a balance in what we do. But then the $1 million question which we have to face is which of these is going to be effective and which of this is not going to be effective. That's the first question. The second question is, you opened up a Pandora's box by saying, which is a fact, which is there, which we also have to look at very seriously. Probably in the recent past, the fastest expansion of nuclear arsenal is taking place there. He is not force multiplying his nuclear arsenal not only by his strategic support force. He is also force multiplying his nuclear arsenal by the multiple silos he's made and the capability of MIRV and the future potential of a hyperglide vehicle. Right? I call it a future potential because it's not a proved anywhere or not a proven. So the combination of this needs to, actually forces us to rethink the whole story. You need to rethink the composition of your rocket force, the way you're actually now looking at it. Either you're going gung ho, everything nuclear, or you're going sub-nuclear with no intermediate capability, and you don't have the capability of a recce strike integration the way we should have or we should go. The question is, are we going that direction? We don't know. Should we go in that direction? I don't think we have a choice. Right? And these are the points which I want to make. It is not discounting what they have. One is you need to have a realistic outlook of what they have, and second is you need to have a realistic outlook of what you don't have, and then work to that. So, you have any views on this? We can take it up, and then we'll go further.
Yes, I wish to say something. Some in agreement with you and some in disagreement with you.
That's okay.
See, so what this whole capacity has done, in my view, and how they link it historically. So, 1950, when Mao, having got control over the mainland, was just thinking of walking into Taiwan. The Seventh Fleet comes, and here is a weak China. In 1958, when they do some amphibious landings on the Ding Dong Island, which I'm told is one of the outlier islands, the Americans threatened China with nukes.
Yes.
Nukes. Now look what they have done. They have responded to them, and now today the carrier advantage has been completely neutralized. I told you what Admiral Paparo said. It cannot come into the first island chain. It is seriously questioning America's force projection abilities. It is questioning America's ability to meet its treaty obligations with Japan, South Korea. So this is what a military capability can do to your overarching political purpose. And therefore, we need to take it seriously. The other point that you said, 2014 or so, the Americans evaluate the Chinese capacities. A little before that, the CNC of IPACOM, I forget his name, he's asked, which is the biggest threat in the Indo-Pacific? US. He says climate change, meaning not China. So you underestimated China, and today what is happening? Hypersonics. Now this is exactly what happens, sir. Of course there are problems, but they are in the hypersonics domain, they are ahead of the Americans in every department.
Yeah, that I agree with you.
Since 2019, they have carried out 135 missile tests cumulatively, more than all that has been carried out by the countries of the world. Their tunneling systems, their tunneling infra, testing infra, is far greater than the Americans. The rocket force and SSF put together have 4 colleges: aerospace engineering, launch engineering, information engineering, 20 research centers. You look at the career path of the current defense minister, Li Fangshu or Li Shang, whatever his name
is.
Yeah,
he's a scientist basically.
Look at that, not only scientist, he has commanded, been a deputy commander of a rocket force, he has commanded a satellite center. So look at his understanding of this, what I say, cross-cutting. In our case, it is just not there. The understanding is not there. So we have to do it. And if this whole enterprise works, if it is not fluff, our bases are under threat. The Americans are struggling to network the Aegis, the Patriot, have, sir, from these individual trajectories to get joint trajectories. They are struggling. So we have to get really serious about interception. They are trying to introduce hypersonic radar filters. They are getting something called the HBTCS or something, which is a hypersonic ballistic space sensor system. So they are struggling because they see the threat. In our case, I don't think we see the threat with the same perspicacity.
Yeah, that I agree with you
What we need
completely.
to do, and once we do that, this rocket force that we are setting up. So therefore, I made this point in that other thing also. When we are setting up our theater commands, before the structural theaters, we need this space, EW, cyber,
You
because
need your
these,
enablers in place.
yes, sir, they
You
have
need your
actually,
enablers in place.
we may keep calling them enablers, they have become game changers. We may not like it, but
No,
they have
no,
become
that's
game
okay.
changers.
But see, the
And
fact
this is
is,
what we must emphasize so that we do it. Because when these missiles get rained across us, our air force bases are all are under threat. And you see how
yeah.
missilery is playing out in Ukraine. It is really playing out.
See,
So if
no, no.
I may just one short point, so 2 points. You see what happened to the Russians. They also had these, air launch missiles, ballistic missiles, cruise missiles. But since they were platform based, service centric, not integrated into this ecosystem of long range precision, they have failed to deliver. We must analyze what happened and make
Yeah,
sure it doesn't happen in our case. That is
yeah.
the short
That
point
no,
I
no.
wish to.
I agree with you completely. But there's another. I mean, since we've gone into Ukraine, there's another factor which has come out in Ukraine. Despite all these capabilities, you see, unfortunately, the front line is where it is. So we need, while what you're saying is right, that we need to have a Recce Strike integration platforms or rather system in place. You call it enabler, game changer, whatever it is. The actual thing, what you have to do on ground is what it is, right? You have to integrate, you have to network, you have to get your target acquisition going back to, you have to use space, you have to use EW, you have to use AI. All that you have to start that process. On that, there's no two ways about it. And there's no two ways about it that you have to have better force multipliers in terms of kinetic delivery systems. It is just not what we have. We need to go far more. But at the same time, I mean, I'm very clear that having dabbled in this field for quite some time, hands on, it's not a completely dismal scenario. History teaches us that these can be offset. And history also teaches us that no one has gone that full distance. Whoever has gone that full distance has question marks. And that is why Z is full of question marks today. The fact is that can China afford to do all what it professes it has or the capability to do so? Can it apply that capability and get away with it? That is the question mark, right? It is not that this thing, and you see just one little event of what they have done through the CIA has put all question marks there. So I'll put it this way. I think you made some very telling points about the need to have a better capability, and you also outlined what the capability is. But at the same time, yeah, there are certain vulnerabilities, and those vulnerabilities are some things which we have to look out for. Right? This is
Can
one
I just say,
vulnerability.
can I
Yeah,
just
yeah,
say 2 things, sir?
yeah. Go
Because
ahead. Go
this
ahead.
is a very deep debate and you've raised very deep questions, so they must be
Yeah. Please go ahead.
engaged with.
Yeah.
This point that you make, sir, you see that my argument is what? India had the advantage in space. We have not leveraged space in the military domain with the same resolve. We have the advantage in algorithms coding. सिविल स्पेस में हो रहा है उसको हमको यहाँ लाना है. So we, by not acting in these domains which we have a natural advantage, we are losing military ascendancy or not acting aggressively enough. The
No, on
second
that,
point is
no. Wait. Let's kill this point. On this, I have no argument at all. Your case rests in this. Let me put it. I go with you completely on this.
and now one more point.
Yeah.
Look at it has taken the Americans to admit it. Last this April, 3 months back or 2 months back, CENTCOM has appointed an advisor on robotics, AI, so on and so forth. Who's that gentleman? Dr. John Moore. Who's he? VP AI Google Cloud. He has been persuaded to take a pay cut and join. Eric Schmidt is driving AI through the American military. He has toured 100 bases and he says, you first upgrade your software systems, upgrade your emailing system, and all this will happen. So, all militaries go through this. The second point that you raised about Ukraine is what, sir? There is no conflict between the squadron company battles and the technology. That is what I'm saying. Squadron company battles will always remain important. Artillery fires will always remain important. But those kill chains, they are being compressed in time frames. So today people are talking of 1,000 kill chains in hundreds of hours. What does it mean? Since you are a gunner, so you will relate to this very well.
Yeah,
Those
yeah.
HIMARS batteries, they they cease fire and move from a gun position in 7 minutes. But
No,
I'm told that the drones they come in at 2 minutes. So this
no,
is how these skill chains are
no,
working.
no. What? Look,
And
look.
AI all just one point. Sir. Those squadron company assaults will always remain important. But today, why Russia is back in the game because of two advantages technological. Persistent surveillance, very different from satellite coming every 7 days. That once you have a target in your custody, you retain it. Persistent surveillance and precision. That is what is helping them win these squadron company battles. So we
Look,
must not conflate the two. We
no, no,
somehow
no.
make this.
No, no, no. Wait, wait, wait. I agree with whatever you're saying. I agree with whatever you're saying. That we need to have press the accelerator on the Reiki surveillance and integration part of it. On that, there's no doubt. There is no doubt you need to integrate your space with your unmanned systems, with your ground-based systems, and subterranean systems and robotics. On that, there's no two ways about it. I mean, there's no argument on that. The fact that we are not doing enough on that is also there's no argument. I have no argument on that at all. But the fact is, empirically, what you have seen is despite all these skill change, despite everything, things don't move the way you thought they would move. And if you read the PLA doctrines, the PLA doctrines, uh, emphasize more on precision kills and system operations X Y Z, and it's a great thing to do the greater and the strategic and the operational art part of it. When it comes to the bottom battle, they have a problem. We have to understand that, and I mean, you might disagree with it. That's okay. So they have a problem. So, and their way of fighting is different, completely going to be different, and you have to be ready for it. On that, also, I have no this thing. So you're going to look at a place where there's going to be a complete mismatch in the way you're going to think and the way you're going to fight. And at the end of the day, someone I keep focusing on one issue. Anything to do with China is political in nature. It's not military in nature. If you don't understand their politics, their military is of no use. If the political outcomes are now good for them or are not being achieved, all this is zero. And you have to focus on that. Yeah, I'll agree with you that Xi Jinping has been an outlier for the past, ever since Deng Xiaoping. From Deng Xiaoping, it was probably Mao who did this in his own way because he crafted the PLA. Right? He crafted the PLA from the word go, and the first four doctrines of PLA by Mao, and after that, this man has come up with his stories. Right? On that, there's no doubt. He's created a tremendous amount of civil-military fusion amongst the whole thing. He's brought the civil-military fusion to great fruition also. But I would look at warfare with China more from a political perspective than from a complete military perspective. These capabilities, if they don't achieve a political purpose, you're out of it. There's no need of them. That is what I think the second thing which we lack doing. We don't understand China politically enough. I'm going to take, it's okay. You have all these capabilities. Is the political capability there, or the political will there, and the political purpose for which all these will be applied? Or is he bluffing you? That's the next point which you have to think. And for that, you need a very clear politico-military fusion, or a politico-military integration at our end. It is just not the military part of it. So I opened up another front to you. You can have a view on it.
So I think here both the countries are similar. In China, it is Xi who has re-engineered the PLA. The PLA was reluctant. They were happy with their static theater commands, all the good stuff that was happening. He has pushed them. In India too, let us be honest. In my mind, for the first time, the
You have someone
politicians, they are telling you reform, create
reform.
theater commands. We are slow, and I'm not. I'm just appealing to my
No,
compatriots.
no, I agree with you.
Slow.
I
One
agree
way
with
is
you.
that if push comes to shove, of course we will stand and fight. But till push comes to shove, why can't we enable our soldiers with
Yeah, that
technology?
I agree with you. That is something which I've been, in fact, after retire, I've been working for that only. You know it.
And now what has happened, sir, is that this is a larger point. National security is getting so complex and sophisticated that the traditional approach of just be a good soldier might not
No,
work.
they
You
won't
have to
work.
be creative, you have to be innovative. There are enough people within the services who are creative, innovative. Let's encourage them. Let make them flower. Where we need, let's get talent from outside, because there is no greater purpose than national security. So talent from outside. Let me just make one last point. So look at, I was just hearing the Marine Force Commandant. The Marine Force has transformed. I think it was done by the previous Marine Force Commandant. When he was doing it, personas of the standing of Anthony Zinni, who was the CNC CENTCOM, he opposed them. When jointness was being driven through the armed forces in US, Douglas MacArthur said, "Over my dead body." So there will be even very exalted figures who may disagree, but see what the Marines have done. They are saying there was a time when we thought jointness is good enough at the corps level. He says no, platoons need to be joined. So give them drones. Make sure they are connected to the global sensor system. Now, some may think this is fancy, some may think this is game changing. I think it is no longer fancy, it is game changing. So, this is what the Indian
Yeah,
military needs to do, apart from all the good that is happening.
yeah, I'm with you completely. I think we have a convergence of thinking on what we need to do. On that, there's no this thing. And with that, we'll take a few questions. I won't, right? And for about 10, 15 minutes, I'll take a few, and then we'll
Certainly.
call it in, right? He says, "Good evening, General Shukla and Shankar. Awesome discussion from two intellectuals who are scholars, soldiers. My conjecture is China will attack us first to weaken a rise in India. Taiwan is a decoy." Yeah, that's what we were talking. Your take, Raj. We can go a
So,
little listen because
my
we've
take
spoken about it.
is let China wonder. Let's focus on capacities. Don't look at his intent.
Yeah,
Make your capacities, let him make a choice. If he wants to do India first, we are prepared. If he wants to do India later, we have more time. But create capacities and at speed and scale. SS, that is where we are a little lacking. And be ambitious in our plans. For example, if in an Indian audience I say, connect the 8 domains from space to seabed, people will laugh. But the Chinese thing is they think of it and they attempt it. So we must be more ambitious, bold. If we do that, we have enough talent in our military and in the other spheres to stand up to the Chinese juggernaut.
right. The next question we'll take is, hello and good evening to both the generals. How are you, sir? Why do we need a dedicated rocket force? Cannot it be within the army itself, a division within the army itself?
In my view, it cannot. You see what they are happening, what the Chinese threat is. They have these 6 operational missile bases. They have 3 support bases. These support bases, each of these is, one is looking at, the nuclear warheads, other is looking at testing R&D, the third is looking at training readiness. Then they have 18 missile brigades, 40 missile brigades, combat missile brigades. So but that is now an old question, because we have taken a decision to set up a rocket force. All that I'm saying is that this rocket force must look at this long range ecosystem of long range precision. We need more ranges. For example, see, if our rocket force points at a boulder in Tibet, vis-a-vis our rocket force threatening Western China, it will help in deterrence. The messages are very different. And to a missile force, the only response, in my view, is a missile force. The other issues, you see, when we talk of space and cyber, it is not my argument that you make them 4 stars. Even if they are 2 stars, you please give them a whole lot of powers, excess. If you do that, pick up 2 bright 2 stars, they can transform it. It's not a matter of turf. It is actually a matter of capacity. So as long as we create capacities of the kind that I'm talking of, we can find our own models. We don't have to ape the Chinese or the Americans or anybody else. We can create a very unique Indian model. What is important is the capacity. See, I'll just give you one example of these operations. We say the Chinese innovate. What is okay, now one very important issue which I must throw up for discussion. See, what the Chinese have done, they saw the mistakes that the Soviet Union made, which has spent so much in the military that the economy is thrown off kilter. So what did they do? Innovation, wider reform. As a result of which, I am told in 1995, the Chinese spent 2.5% of their GDP on defense. Today they spend 1.7. So you can add military muscle without spiraling costs, through innovation, through new talent pipelines, all that stuff. So you can add military muscle at lower costs. So you see, there are a whole lot of things that need to be done in this whole reform. I'm basically an advocate of reform. I'm not saying that you create these large brick and mortar structures.
Yeah, I think he's made a very important point. Let me add to that. The idea is not to have a rocket force as much as you reform your structure, then evolve into a rocket force. Till such time you don't have the kinetic capability to do so, there's no point in having a rocket force. And the first thing of a rocket force is not the rocket, but the structure around that rocket. With the rockets which you have, you can work well, but do you have the support structure for the rockets? If you have the support structure for the rocket, then the force will generate itself. So it's not a chicken and egg story. It is a matter of evolution through the right path, and for that you need a different kind of thinking. And are we thinking well enough on that? That is the point. That's the point which we really need to debate. Okay.
Can I just say one thing? Just
Yeah,
one
yeah.
point. See, I was so glad when I've heard and I know that General Shankar and I think even General Rajiv Narayanan, they are professors of practice at IIT Chennai in this whole business. I have grown up, General Shankar has grown up. We were told, oh, listen, technology is not your problem. You fight. Technology somebody else will produce. It's not going to happen.
Yeah,
The Indian military, you have to make the effort to understand hypersonics. Only then will you have the confidence to argue for a hypersonic enabled rocket force.
Yeah. Let me share it with you.
Technology
Yeah,
is not infra dig. Technology is not something that soldiers don't do. This is I don't know. So therefore, the larger point I make is, while structural corrections are important, like theatre commands, what the Indian Army needs is cultural transformation in thought. कि भाई ये भी कर सकते हैं, technology की भी ज़रूरत है. We need talent from outside. The humility to acknowledge it. We can't do everything on our own. AI करना है तो कोई बाहर लाना पड़ेगा. It took Nandan Nilekani to get data into the civilian space in India. It will take some such figure to drive data through the Indian Armed Forces. Surprisingly, she has understood data, and he's right. What is the strategic support force? It is an
all data,
acknowledgement that data is the new engine of war.
बस
तो
डेटा
ये जो
डेटा फ्यूजन.
हमारी जो सोच है, इसमें बहुत गहरी तब्दीली लानी पड़ेगी.
Right. Okay. This is the only channel in which good generals are teaching how to think strategically. Kudos, sir. Keep it up. You are preparing an informed and intelligent young generation. I keep seeing this again and again and again. Please come to Ghana Shot. You'll get the best. You'll get a debate. You might get opposing views, everything. But the whole thing is ultimately we are looking at convergence and convergence to ensure that our nation becomes stronger. Right? More than that, I'll take one more question, which is right. Let's see if there's a. I mean, I would like to take a good question. Okay, let's take this. Sir, this presentation is quite frightening, and India needs to plan for security. Much of this is not reported in our media, and our civilians are blissfully ignorant. I think we need to put some confidence back in
No, it's
people.
not frightening. Please understand,
So
we are not
yeah.
frightening. The strength of democracies is our ability to debate and disagree.
Disagree.
There is a lovely line in Hindi which says, "Sehmati ka sahas or sehmati ka vivek," the wisdom to agree and the courage to disagree. Jen Shankar has been my boss. He has been a mentor and a friend. Yet you see how I disagree with him.
Yeah,
So
that's
the
okay.
larger reason is that the military is intrinsically democratic. It disagrees, it differs. And out of the disagreement and difference,
Will
progress
come something.
occurs. We are not saying that at all. We are saying we will take on the Chinese. Please let me reiterate this. But we can take them on better if we do what we are suggesting that must be done. It is not a picture of despondency, but just merely saying that we must do that much more so that any adversarial threat is kept at bay. It is wisdom. It is
Wisdom.
not despondency at all.
Yeah, I think that's the major point which we I also want to reinforce. देखिए, आज के दिन अगर चाइना के साथ लड़ाई छिड़ गया तो हम लड़ेंगे, फिक्र मत कीजिए. और चाइना के साथ we'll give them a solid kick and send them out also. And right, and don't worry, this war is not going to happen overnight. Even if Xi Jinping doesn't go to Taiwan, he's not to come here with 28 divisions and start fighting with us. That's not going to happen. And the kind of war between two nuclear nations with a 3,500 kilometer long LAC is going to be far different from what all of us think. All rockets will not be firing all around the countryside. So don't worry about it. We'll be able to handle it. Why this debate is going on? This debate is going on because India is a rising power. We are not talking of today's capabilities. We are talking of tomorrow's capabilities. What we need to have as a nation which is going to have the third largest economy in a few years' time. It might happen in 5 years, it might happen in 10 years, it might happen in 15 years. At that point of time, when you have the third largest economy, you need to have the military power to back it up and make it into a global player. It's all about balance of power. Are you prepared to get into the greater balance of power for the common good of this world or not? These are the questions. Will you be able to take our nation so that the weakest person in our nation is defended and his well-being is taken care of? Those are the larger questions which have to be addressed through clear-headed military thinking. And clear-headed military thinking comes out of debate and disagreement. You have to progress to that, and we are thinking of something tomorrow. We are not thinking of today. Yeah, Raj, please.
Can just I forget this
Yeah, yeah.
gentleman's name? जिसने ये सवाल पूछा,
Vishwanathan.
but I just want to, if you could just get his name up, sir. What is his
Yeah,
name?
Vishwanathan.
Vishwanathan. No, it was the one before him. The point is, I want what I want to be sure. You are thinking it is strange. The Indian military has war games and sand models. There are intense disagreements. A second lieutenant
This is the
disagrees with
one
a
which
colonel.
came.
A colonel disagrees with a general. That is a strong point of the Indian military, contrary to popular impression. The other point that you make about civilians, yes, the civilians and military must integrate. The civil military fusion is का Indian equivalent क्या है? Our ancient texts talk of integrating Saraswati, Durga, and Lakshmi. See how brilliant this argument is. What does it say? It says कि जो centers of learning है, academia, Saraswati, they must be nurtured so that they produce wealth, Lakshmi. And from Lakshmi, you nurse your instruments of power, which means civil, military must come together. China हमको क्या सिखाएगा? ये तो हमारे civilizational wisdom में है. Only we need to wake up to it and do it. ये जो हम बात करते हैं, military is aware, civilians are not aware. We are all part of this. And the last point I think which General Shankar was trying to make, we are all talking of Amrit Kal. This is our moment. India becoming the Vishwa Guru or whatever, Viksit Bharat. Do we not need to secure this Amrit Kal? And this Amrit Kal will only be secured by us being clairvoyant on issues of national security.
Yeah, and today's talk is all about clairvoyance. It's not about the current at all, right? We're trying to project into the future. I think we'll stop it at this. And I must thank you for the clarity which you brought into this entire discussion, and the new perspectives which you brought into the discussion, because this kind of a discussion is required. And all those who are watching this, आप जरा ध्यान रखिए, ये जो भी बात करते हैं, ये हम आज के लिए नहीं बात कर रहे हैं. आज तो है, आज का जो भी हम करना है करेंगे, ये हम कल के लिए और परसों के लिए बात कर रहे हैं. ये हम उस टाइम के बारे में बात करें जब हम नहीं रहेंगे. आप अगला पीढ़ी आ जाएगा इधर, राइट? With this, I'll say thank you to everyone. Thanks to everyone for watching. Have a good evening, and Jai Hind, and Jai Hind to you also, Raj. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Good night. Thank you for the opportunity. Great pleasure,
Yeah.
sir. Great.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye, sir.